I can take creepy B-reel of him.
You can.
And I am. I've been filming creepy B-reel of you.
You're like a dad right now.
Yeah, I do feel.
Great channel.
And I would like to say that Quayle has already finished publishing his first poem. So,
Hi guys. As you know, my name is Quayle. I have 7 poems for you all tonight from this fellowship that we did. Finn and I worked really hard over the summer. We put a lot of hours, we spent a lot of time, and I'm really, really proud of both of us for all the work that we put in. Your big outside voice, please. Big outside voice. Hello, everybody. We put in a lot of work. It was hard, and you should appreciate that. What I focused on mostly for my themes in the poem summer was mostly stuff related to family, death, fractured relationships after death, mostly because my father, Cavendish, he passed away in 2019 when I was 13 years old, and it was kind of an experience, so I wrote a lot of poetry. So my first poem tonight is titled When My Mother Sleeps. She leaves space for Dad, half the bed still covered in crashing waves of rumpled quilt, swirling thread beckoning the ghost that does not answer. Her room is his museum, his various proofs of life. Curated books, a stack of salt, English to Latin, photos from their wedding, faces obscured, a wooden puzzle cube with one red ball rattling inside, trapped somehow the same way she is. My second poem, I have been told by some of my peers that I've read it to, is a little bit of a doozy. But don't be afraid, it's fine. So I grew up as a Church of Jesus Christ, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My family is pretty religious, and so I grew up learning all the classic Christian stories. This next poem, titled The Fall, requires 2 pieces of important context. First is, if you're not familiar with the Christian told story, when Jesus was about to be crucified, he went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed to God and felt the entire weight of all sin. It was like a really bad, rough time, basically. A moment of complete pure suffering before he did the thing that would exalt us all. So, and the second piece of important context is this past summer, a little before I wrote this, I tried to race one of my good friends down the street, and I fell and shredded my knee, like just entirely, to little meaty ribbons. So, in a way, I tried to connect these things in this poem. Number 1. The wound was instantaneous, fresh blood burgeoning from many holy pores. In my pain-drugged state, I thought of Jesus knelt in Gethsemane, delirious in his begging for it all to end in mercy. Number 2. Right before I hit the ground, I knew most things. Saw him watching with lawyer's eyes. Dad wasn't there to patch the gash, kiss the sin to complacency. He left alone the raw crater, the sting gravelly and fresh like illness, terminal. Number 3. Those verses were read to me as comfort, and still I grew guilty in all my adding recklessly to its aid. Another jagged cross for the Savior to bear, my jaggedness transmuted upon his dove feather skin. Read it again, Dad. Tell me how this one was felt. My next poem is titled Another Post-Smoke Shower. It isn't possible to get clean in a bathroom like this. I see constellations in the ceiling mold, hear the mice plotting against me through the vent. Go ahead and take it all for granted, the way I shaped this shit into something worthwhile, something more than the conga line of carpet beetles feasting on cat food, or the crack in the wall where the rain drips through. A dead man used this shower before me 6 years ago, and he might have been kind to me once before I turned to this way of coping in his absence. He did not teach me the theory of relativity, or how to get through the afternoon without crying, or how to wash myself from all that is burdening me. How to get the sticky skin to apologize, the cracked and blistering crevices of my body to obey what I am begging for, to show my corpse the mercy it does not understand. Nobody cleaned out the grime left in the sink. It makes a rusty half-moon around the drain, a modern Borealis. I wanted to help it understand. So my next poem might feel like a bit of a pivot, and I will pivot to the entomologists in the audience over there. I see you. I am a biologist as much as I am a poet and English student. I love science. I love insects mainly. My favorite insect is the cicada, and over the course of this experience, I wrote maybe like 4 or 5 of my fully fledged developed poems about cicadas. Just because I like them so much. What can I say? So this poem is titled "The Cicada's First Conscious Moment." By the gnash of my tymbals know that I will live forever. The sun calls me to my grand destiny, warmth seeping deep into the fresh dirt where I lay. I have shed that earthy skin, washed away the muck of home, and invented jewel green magic in his absence. Yes, I have heard the stories. My ancestors were killed swiftly, squashed under boot, gobbled up by hungry dogs, exhausted by the August heat they supposedly built to survive. Their new, exposed bodies were crumpled up in curious hands and mouths. Through the ground I heard each execution, each tragedy loudly emanating. This morning is what raised me. Those threats will hear my intentions song, my rough satay. They will know the names I possess and offer new ones at the basis of my legacy. I will fly quick from those who destroy me, escape to the swarm of that which is familiar, write poetry from our population, shield it all away with glassy wings. Perhaps this time, none of us will know. After that, I have a shorter one. This one is titled Monkey's Paw, off of the titular early 20th century short story that I'm sure we all read in middle school. If you don't know the story, it's about a family who finds a severed monkey's paw that can grant wishes, and they use it to bring somebody back to life, and I'm sure you can make a couple of connections for this. Dad comes back rotten, skin sloughing off in chunks. His eyes are cold stars burning great craters into my head. And still, he is ushered back in. So this next poem is the one that my good friend Jeremy Jusick was talking about that got published. Voting Acorn Review, very exciting. We did, as part of this experience, have to try to get a bunch of our work published, which anybody who's done that knows it is like a usually extremely unsuccessful situation, like totally thankless, utterly thankless and terrible. So I feel very lucky and proud of myself that this got published. This poem is partially inspired by experiences of my older brother Alistair in his time working at Walmart. Yeah, we all like that, don't we? Which, kind of sucks and isn't a very, pretty or, poetic job, many would say, but it's just a lot of little moments from that kind of got to me. So this one is titled Team Associates Final Rounds. 5 minutes remain before the doors get locked, and Walmart is alive in the way I have not been. A child strains for a pack, glow in the dark ceiling stars. They are just out of reach, the metal shelf mere inches above her head. bastions of hope in the sea of asphalt in which they are marooned. A toddler sings his debut solo, surrounded by lunch meat and unwilling onlookers. One woman is angry with the way her toaster burns everything that goes through it. There is a tan line where her wedding ring used to sit. Can't trust anything these days, the man says to his phone. He leaves with cigarettes and throws away the receipt. On their way out, they bid me well. Good night, drive safe, see the sunset if you get the chance. A quart of frozen dairy substitute leads out amongst the craft aisle, splattering on the tile in slow, deliberate drops. And then my final poem for the night is probably the one that I'm proudest of. It took a bit of work, and I wrote it near the end of the program. It definitely, so just to give you guys this story, the way it happened was my good friend Jeremy Jusik told me, you need something else. Like, you need another poem in your work to tie these themes together. And I was like, okay. So I wrote a poem, and then I sent it to him. How's this? He responds, please change, like, all of these things. It's like I woke up to, like, 17 notifications of notes on it. And I'm making you look really bad. I'm sorry. But it was definitely a little bit of grief, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. An important piece of context for my final poem is the fact that when my dad passed away, I got my first ever phone, his old phone, which, you know, a nice consolation prize, I suppose. But it also, sorry. It also came with his phone number, which also, relatedly, came with his voicemail. And it has been 6 years, and we have not changed that voicemail. This is still true today. If you call my number, you will hear Cavendish going, hey, this is Cavendish with a message, which, incidentally, is the title of this poem. This one is based off of real events from this past semester, so, you know, whoa. The door to your old office froze last night. Its bitter seams fused in protest at the cold, all gathering to mourn fear in its despondency. We buried our dead already, placed pregnant handfuls of earth upon their wooden mouths, stifling their final breaths. Your living relies on our consent, our desire to keep the corpse around, and Dad, know that I would keep your fingers in my freezer, thaw them nightly to feel your touch, or at least the framework of it. Maybe I already am. I inherited your number, and 6 years later, you still redirect my calls. At a party, I told a girl there was a dead man in my phone. Give me a call, you'll hear him speak. But her phone was lifeless, black screen reflecting the fraternity's twinkling lights. Drunkenly, she handed it over, and its whole body told me nothing. Thank you so much.
We love quayle.
And for the vote!
I like when you say those words.
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give them 2 chairs. All right. Thank you all. Does anyone have a question for either of our esteemed writers?
You have one over here?
Yes.
I am working on a bunch of different writing things myself, and I've gotten one thing published a while back. So what is the best advice you think you got through this fellowship about writing, about the process, about maybe writing about uncomfortable things?
Brief time. And piggybacking off of that, it is a difficult skill to learn, and I have not mastered it. I'm not even close. Of just like writing outside of yourself. It is very, very difficult for everybody, and it feels so intuitive in a way that is like insanely difficult to actually but it's important to like see your own work as just work and not your expression of your emotions, because then that allows it to be more, so I wouldn't say the word is palatable, because not everything is palatable, but it's important to like make it transmute. Oh gosh. I feel a lot more confident in my work, and a lot more critical of my work in a good way. I've always been pretty critical of my work, but now the criticism has direction. Like, I know what directions to lead it into instead of just being like, oh, this sucks, let's throw it all away, you know?
It's a pretty dead art, yes?
Oh, it's pretty dead. Okay.
No, I just mean, like, at one point in time, everyone was a poet, and now...
Yeah, it's so interesting that we're in this, like, worthless field.
That's not what I said. I said, what brought you to poetry, which is piggybacking.
I knew my company.
Yeah, no, seriously. I think for me, the big reason I started writing poetry was very classic 7th grade, like, you need to get your emotions out and you're not in therapy, so you just put everything on a lined piece of notebook paper. And I did that a lot, and I got really, really into it. And Ben Cromwell, who taught here, for those who remember, he taught a class at my middle school, creative writing, and I would always it gave me a great opportunity to write a lot of like really terrible poetry. But similarly, poetry has always been a part of my life. My family is, I would say, pretty poetically minded. My grandma is constantly like reading out little haikus, you know, doing little like listicles and things. Very, just, you know, like flowery, nerdy people. Which I don't know, I find it nice. And I think what really kick-started poetry as a passion for me was, honestly, probably like being in a creative writing club at Veritas, because that was pretty important for me to like continue on and actually do it. And then when I started reading poetry at that point, I was like, wait a minute, this is it, you know, like this is the stuff. So some people might think it's like dying or terrible.
I don't know what you said.
No, I'm somewhat of a black sheep, so I don't even care. So.
Well, I actually read this to Derek, but this was, you have to keep in mind. We had is 18 to 1. We had 17 kindergartners in our classroom this summer. 17. Yay!
Both of you, after having gone through this experience, would you still apply for this for next year?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I do think you have to be ready for you to hate every single thing you put down. I mean that genuinely. It's like, I think everybody should be writing poetry. Everybody in the world should be trying their own arts out, especially poetry, because, you know, it's a great way to express yourself. It's a great way of like, I don't know, it's really fun. It's really fun. But you really have to be willing to look at your work and appraise your work and like, you know, get into the nitty gritty, because like he will not let you out unscathed, you know. And I mean that loving. It's the best experience I've had, probably, for like my career in terms of like wanting to be a future writer. I genuinely think I am so much better at what I'm doing because of this experience and because of the people I did it with. So thank you guys for that. But like, you know, genuinely, I would say, yeah.
Piggybacking off of that, loving times where Quayle and I complained about feeling like and being told that we needed to change everything that you can like bounce stuff off of. Like, as I was able to do this with someone that I could like speak to the entire time throughout the process, because it made me another person to do it with. You'll complain to him about yourself, and he won't.
That's his whole job.
One this year, but the name of the fellowship is Poets and Playwrights.
Yeah, we're just geeks.
Huh?
Yeah. We're just sorry. Like I said, I don't.
But this past summer we had 2 poets. Ship is usually opens in spring to theater students, English students, alumni, or kind of, so if anyone wants to donate to poets and playwrights and help this going for future generations. Or
I have one specifically for quail. So your poem about the cicada, is this specifically the periodical cicadas or the dog-day cicadas?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked. I'm so glad because we did have to have a conversation about this, Jeremy and I, when we were doing the poem. It's like, what kind of. So, in the poem specifically, for those who aren't aware, I don't know if anybody's not aware. You know, you get the yearly dog-day cicadas, and then there's the cicadas that come over periods of time. So you have cicadas that are like in the ground for 25 years, and then you get those big cicada blooms. You know, when that happens, it's like they all look up. Like, so, pretty cool. I do enjoy the periodical cicadas very much, but this was more of a dog day cicada situation, as it's sort of like, I think that translates better for an ancestral knowing what has come before and thinking that you can change it, even though you really can't, you know, necessarily, is like, that cicada isn't gonna live forever, you know what I mean? But like he's gonna be here for the summer, but comes back next summer. So, I don't know, you know, I just think it's kind of fun to think about, specifically with the dog day cicadas. So, yeah. So.
2 more.
Okay, so there are so many outlets of expression, especially for emotional pieces and speaking out your emotions, you know, talking about them, journaling them, writing music, writing lyrics, making physical art, things like that. What about poetry kept bringing you back? And is that your preferred outlet of emotional expression, or are there other things that you use as well?
I kept describing poetry, arts, and like everything. If you're like really putting your whole self into it, poetry can encompass all of these things. And once I find a good poem, I can read it over and over and over again. And I guess it's just easy to read these like poems or anything. It's easier to like read that over and over in the bones. So for me, I'm drawn back in because it really is like I quote them in my brain, like they get stuck in my head. So I guess
That's a good answer. I think for me, to be entirely honest, poetry at this point in my, I don't know what the word is, in my lifespan as a writer, I'm at a point currently in a phase, I suppose, where poetry is not my preferred method of dealing with my emotions, just because I'm like, I can't get the editor demon out of my head saying, you need to make this a good poem. That's not targeted at anyone. But so like, I don't know, I've been really focused on, usually like when I have an issue, I will journal about it before I poem about it, you know what I mean? What I like about poetry, what keeps me coming back to it, is the fact that it's an art form where it doesn't tell you everything. You kind of have to search around. You have to get the bits and pieces that the poet offers you, and then expand on that your own. I also like the fact on your own. I'm a big fan of the fact that poetry allows for a conversation between the reader and the one who wrote it. Like these poems that I wrote, you know, like the poems that I shared with you guys today, the second that you heard them and understood them, they weren't my poem anymore. You know what I mean? They were your poem, in a way. Because everybody's individual meaning of it will be different than what I intended. You can't possibly know all of the little like bits and pieces and details that I put into there. And I think that's kind of beautiful. As an English major, as a person who really focuses a lot on trying to like wheedle my way into what the author was trying to say here, I think it's really important to have those art forms where it's like, you know, let's put all these little sticks down. You have to gather them and make them in your own facilities. Like, my understanding of a poem would be entirely different from somebody else's understanding. There were plenty of times over the course of the fellowship where Finn and I would be reading poems. We read a lot of poetry during this time, often together. And we would have different perspectives on what we wrote, like what we read, what we wrote. And I think I don't know, I think that's one of my favorite things about poetry is the fact that it is like, there are so few art forms that can so perfectly encapsulate the particulars of human emotion, and I think the fact that poetry doesn't literally state that out is the only way that it works, if that makes sense. So, I don't know, I just kind of like it.
Speaking of reading poetry together, at one point we pulled out all three of Jeremy Juice's.
We did, and we never told you that. Surprise! We needed the stress relief of like, he should have used a different word.
I hope
I wasn't gonna
were
say that.
extra critical. I hope so. That's the only.
Extra students in the poets and playwrights thing, we have copies of all of his books.
You do.
So feel
All
free
of
to
mine
come
are
to us.
signed.
They're all signed. They're all signed. So feel free to come to us, and if like if you want
If you just want to tear them apart.
we're here. We're here, and we know. So yeah.
All right, I think we're gonna end right here with our last one.
Okay, I was kind of debating whether or not I was going to have a question, and then the idea of forcing Quayle to answer something allured me too much to not to. So, I feel like ever since I learned how to write, I've been writing, and obviously one of those is poetry. So I'm just wondering, because I've personally flip-flopped my entire life, when you go to write a poem, do you go in having the emotions and then seek to write out a poem? Or do you start with the poem and then you have to force out the intention behind it? Is it the emotions first, or do you need to pull those emotions out because you need to write a poem? Purely just for your own enjoyment, not whatever this guy is forcing you to do.
When I'm not in twisted inner machinations of Jeremy Juice's literally his terrible labyrinth of torture. And I say this lovingly. Sorry, we're getting too into this joke. We had a great time with that.
I love Jeremy
We
Juice.
love Jeremy. We're just very committed to the bit. So I would say usually I start with a feeling. Something has to happen. There is always an inciting incident for every single one of my poems. Every single one. Like the one about my dad's voicemail, I only wrote a poem about it because I had an experience where I went to a frat party and I told a random girl, "Hey, my dead dad's in my phone. Do you want to hear him?" So it was just a one-off conversation. It was related. It was a related situation. But it was very much yeah, let's take a listen. And we all crowded around and listened to, "This is Cavendish McKay, leave a message." And it's this pit bull sitting in the background. What are we doing? You know what I mean? And it's I don't know, I think this sounds so cheesy and lame. I'm gonna say so cheesy and lame. It's when you're living the experiences, the poetry writes itself. You know what I mean?
I do.
I'm just saying. It's if you spend your time looking for moments of poeticism, you will find moments of poeticism in literally everything at all times. So if you have the poet's mindset, if you're holding a hammer, everything's a nail. And that's how it is to be a poet. Everything's a nail. And buddy, you've got a hammer. So, I don't know. This is just,
It's true, I do have a hammer. That was great.